As someone who's been in therapy on and off for years, and someone who just got back into it in the beginning of the year, I can tell you and understand that sometimes it's a difficult process to find a therapist you feel comfortable with and trust, but it really shouldn't be that way. And that's exactly why today's sponsor, Rula, was formed. Rula connects you with high quality, vetted, licensed mental health professionals that are suited for you. Rula partners with a network of over 10,000 therapists and psychiatrists worldwide, helping you find the right fit for you based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements. And to make it even better, they accept most major insurance plans, which means that instead of paying hundreds of dollars out of pocket, you could be paying as little as $15 per session. Head over to rula.com/killer to begin. That's RULA.com/killer, because better mental health should be accessible, affordable, and easy. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to rula.com/killer to get started today. After you sign up, they ask where you heard about them, and please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Go to rula.com/killer and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. Hello everyone, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Killer Instinct, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah and I am your host of Killer Instinct. And before we get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss it. We also upload the video version onto YouTube on Wednesdays as well, so make sure you are subscribed. Along with that, if you're looking for more exclusive Killer Instinct content, you can find that over on our Patreon, where we upload an additional 3 episodes a month over there. That link is always in the description box. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can find that link up at the very top of the page at the banner. But for today's episode, as you can tell by the title, today we are talking about a case that truly is a whirlwind. I mentioned to you guys in the beginning of the year that we are going to stop doing the month-to-month themed cases that we did all throughout 2024. I took in your guys' feedback that you had given me saying that you didn't really want to do themed cases throughout the entire year, but themed episodes and themed months were something that you were still interested in. And due to the fact that this upcoming week is Valentine's Day, I figured that we would cover a case that, had we done a Valentine's Day themed month, this case definitely would have fallen into that category. As you can tell by the title, today we are talking about the brutal murder of Denise Leuthold. This is a very twisted case of backstabbing betrayal, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on it. So with that being said, let's jump right on into it today. Denise Leuthold was born on February 3rd, 1974 in Dade County, Florida, to her parents, Douglas and Diane. Denise's family grew up very close. She has a sister named Deanna, and when Denise was in the 4th grade, this is when she met a boy that would change her life forever, and that was a boy named Nathan Leuthold. Nathan was in the 3rd grade at the time that he met Denise, and like I said, Denise was in the 4th grade, and even at that young age, Nathan said that he was absolutely enamored by Denise, and as they grew up together and went throughout their school years together and entered into high school, this is where they really began to get to know each other better. Now, they both came from religious families, so they didn't start dating until the end of high school. They started out as very good friends, but over time, that friendship transpired into much, much more. Once the two officially began dating, they became inseparable. They were in the midst of the high school and puppy love phase. Nathan was a basketball player, and Denise was a cheerleader. After graduating high school, Denise went off to college in Minnesota, and a year later, Nathan followed her. And to no one's surprise, a year after that, Nathan proposed to Denise, and the two got married in July of 1995. After getting married, Nathan and Denise moved to Peoria, Illinois. This is a very suburban neighborhood. It's very safe. There's lots of kids riding around on their bikes, people walking along the street. It's an area where major crimes typically don't take place. Now, when they got to Peoria, Denise began working at an insurance company and Nathan was working in sales, but over time, Nathan realized that he had bigger dreams. He wanted more for himself. He had always dreamt of being a Baptist missionary. So because of this dream, in 1998, Denise and Nathan became missionaries and moved to Lithuania for a year. Now, all of Denise's family has said that this was definitely more Nathan's dream than it was Denise's, but Denise wanted to be there and support her husband in this endeavor and what he felt was his higher calling. Now, after the first year in Lithuania, Denise and Nathan returned back home to Peoria, Illinois, and eventually welcomed 2 children together, but their time in Lithuania was not done. The family continued to travel back and forth from Lithuania to the US over the next 8 years. So this was a very long time period that this was taking place. And whenever they were back in the States, Denise was living at her family's house. So Denise, Nathan, and their 2 children were living at Denise's parents' home in Peoria. Now, over their years in Lithuania, Denise and Nathan were able to spend time and get close to a lot of the people that lived there. They even began to bring some of the Lithuanians and the families that they were meeting to the United States for new opportunities. They would sponsor these families and bring them to the United States, whether that be through musical opportunities or through athletic opportunities. They really were determined to help these people have a better life for themselves. And when they were back in the United States, Nathan spent his time speaking at church services and talking about his and his family's experiences in Lithuania with the hopes of raising more money for their next overseas venture. Now, during this time period of being home, Denise and Nathan welcomed their 3rd child. So they now had 3 children, were living with Denise's parents. So this was a full house, and they also had full-time jobs and full-time intentions to get back to Lithuania. So there was a lot going on for the Leuthold family. But what seemed like an idyllic family on the outside very quickly came crashing down. And that is where this case begins. This case begins on Valentine's Day of 2013. So February 14th of 2013. This day started out like any normal day. Nathan had bought Denise flowers and a card for Valentine's Day, and he left it on the kitchen table. Denise and Nathan also bought their kids cute little Valentine's Day trinkets, and then afterwards, Nathan took the older 2 children to school while Denise stayed back with their youngest. It wasn't until mid-afternoon of February 14th, 2013 that something happened which was very out of character for Denise, and that was that Denise did not show up to pick their daughter up from school that day. Denise's parents and Nathan were contacted by their daughter's school to let them know that Denise had not shown up to pick up their daughter, Julia. Now, Nathan told Denise's parents, who were at work at this time, that he was going to call Denise and figure out what was going on, and he was also going to pick up their youngest daughter, Janelle, from daycare. Nathan said that while this was very out of character for Denise, he figured that there had to be a reasonable explanation as to why she would miss picking up Julia from school. Now, Nathan at that point, like I said, he went to grab Janelle from daycare and then decided to swing by their home, which was right around the corner from the daycare. And he did this to make sure that everything was okay at the house, to make sure that Denise was okay, and just do a check-in, see what was going on. Nathan said he drove with Janelle in the car to the home, and when he pulled in through the driveway, he noticed that the garage door of the home was left open. This was not usual. This was not the norm. Typically, whenever anyone left the house, they always shut that garage door. So to find it open was not usual. At this point, Nathan said that he left Janelle in the car as he walked inside of the garage and noticed that the windows had been broken and there was glass scattered disappeared on the floor. Now, at this point, because of what he's seeing, Nathan said that it left him to believe that someone had broken into the home. Nathan went on to explain at this time the thought process that he went through is that he is not a confrontational person and he did not want to walk into the home and potentially confront intruders. He said he wasn't going to know what to do at that point. So instead of going into the home, he actually got back into the car with Janelle and parked in the neighbor's driveway, keeping an eye on the house while simultaneously calling 911. At this point, Nathan said he did not know for certain if Denise was also in the home. However, considering that Denise did not pick up their daughter from school and now he's going to the house and thinking that there's an intruder inside, he's starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. But regardless, he did not go in the home. He waited in the neighbor's driveway and he called 911. Now, after calling 911, Nathan repeatedly called different family members asking anyone if they had heard from Denise. However, no one had, which only further increased Nathan's speculation that Denise was in fact inside of the home. Now, when police arrived to the scene, they spoke with Nathan and then canvassed the area and entered into the house. And while they did not find any intruder, they did in fact find Denise. 39-year-old Denise was found lying in a pool of blood laying in the entryway of the home. It was clear that Denise had been killed by a single gunshot wound to the back of her head. Denise had barely any time to take her coat off before she was killed. It was clear to police that this happened very quickly, that Denise was not expecting it, and that she had barely any time to do anything once she walked into that door. Now, upon first look, investigators figured that Denise was interrupted by a potential robbery that was happening in the home when she was killed. And we will get to their reasoning for why they initially thought that in a moment, but I want to get back to Nathan right now. So while police were walking in the home, Nathan was still outside in the car with Janelle in the back seat. Now, while he was waiting in the car, this is when Nathan's father called him and told him that Denise had been killed. The reason that he knew this is because Nathan's dad also lived in Peoria and he was listening to the radio and heard Denise's death as it had been broadcasted on the radio station. And while it wasn't confirmed at the time that it was Denise, the radio station did report one fatality in the home, and everyone at that point was pretty confident that unfortunately that one person was Denise. Now, at this point, police had asked Nathan to come down to the station with them and answer some questions that they had. They wanted to get a better understanding of Nathan, of Denise, what happened leading up to this. Now, during this questioning, Nathan was very confident that him and his family had no enemies. He said that there was no reasoning for anyone to have any ill will towards them. And part of the reason that police were so confident at this point that this was a potential robbery gone wrong was because from first glance, that's exactly how this looked. The house had been ransacked. It had been rummaged through. There were drawers that were on the floor, and there also were several items missing from the home. That would be a laptop, a digital camera, other jewelry, and 2 guns had been stolen as well. And one of the guns that was stolen was believed to be the same type of gun that was used to kill Denise. So we will get back to that fact in just a moment. But as police were speaking with Nathan, Nathan broke down to authorities what the morning and really the day of February 14th, 2013 looked like leading up to finding Denise. Now, Nathan said that Denise and him and the kids woke up at approximately 6:45 a.m. as they did every morning for school. Nathan said that he got ready for the day, he showered, he shaved, the kids saw their trinkets for Valentine's Day that were left out on the table, and then Nathan took the 2 older children to school. Afterwards, Nathan said that he went to the local day spa to buy a massage gift certificate for Denise on Valentine's Day. After dropping the kids off at school, this is when Nathan said that he went to the local day spa to buy a massage gift certificate for Denise as a gift for Valentine's Day. Nathan said that when he left the house with the kids that morning, Denise was still at home with Janelle. There didn't seem to be anything wrong. Denise seemed to be in perfectly good spirits. Everyone was actually overly happy, if anything, because it was Valentine's Day. day. It was a holiday. Everyone was in a fun mood. And Nathan claimed that Denise told him that she was going to take Janelle to daycare around noon that day and then go off to the mall to run some errands before picking Julia up from school. But as we know, that never happened. Nathan said that when he learned that Julia had not been picked up from school, he called Denise multiple times but didn't get an answer. And Nathan said that when he did not get an answer from Denise, he actually wasn't worried at first. He said he really wasn't worried when he didn't receive a call back or an answer from Denise, and that it wasn't until he went by the house after picking up Janelle from daycare and saw that the home had appeared to be broken into that the worry began to set in. Now, naturally, police did ask Nathan about him and Denise's marriage, what their marriage was like, if they had any marital issues, but Nathan was very confident that as far as the marriage between him and Denise went, he said that they had the perfect marriage. Denise was the perfect wife, the perfect mother. She was devoted to her family and her husband, and that there were no issues in the marriage. Nathan was very cooperative with police, and after speaking with them, he actually went to his sister's home, which was where his kids were at that point. Now, after a few days, Nathan and the children moved to a mission house in a neighboring town. This house was considered a safe house because at this point, no one really knew what had happened here. No one knew if this was a robbery gone wrong. No one knew if this was a targeted attack against Denise. So in order to keep the entire family safe, police put them in a safe house in the neighboring town. But Denise's parents, on the other hand, because again, this was their home, they actually returned back home right away as soon as they could, which, as you can imagine, was very, very difficult for them, but they were confident that that is what they wanted to do. As someone who's been in therapy on and off for years, and someone who just got back into it in the beginning of the year, I can tell you and understand that sometimes it's a difficult process to find a therapist you feel comfortable with and trust, but it really shouldn't be that way. And that's exactly why today's sponsor, Rula, was formed. Rula connects you with high quality, vetted, licensed mental health professionals that are suited for you. Rula partners with a network of over 10,000 therapists and psychiatrists worldwide, helping you find the right fit for you based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements. And to make it even better, they accept most major insurance plans, which means that instead of paying hundreds of dollars out of pocket, you could be paying as little as $15 per session. Therapy can be intimidating, but Rula makes it easy by supporting you in every step of the way of this process, from finding a therapist to scheduling your sessions to tracking your progress and dealing with insurance. They really make sure it's all taken care of for you. And getting started is easy. Rula just asks that you take a quick question survey with what you're looking for from your therapist, what your insurance is, what your preferences are, and from there, they will take your answers and match you with a network of providers who fit your exact criteria. You can even book your first session and start your journey to better mental health as soon as the next day. Head over to rula.com/killer to begin. That's RULA.com/killer, because better mental health should be accessible, affordable, and easy. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to rula.com/killer to get started today. After you sign up, they ask where you heard about them, and please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Go to rula.com/killer and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. Now, as police were trying to solve this case and in the midst of this investigation, there were several things that definitely stood out to them that struck them as red flags. There were things that they struggled with. The first was the crime scene itself, the home. This did appear, at first glance, like I've said, to be a robbery gone wrong because there were some things that were taken, items were stolen, and it appeared that someone had gone through the home very quickly trying to find these items. But once police took a closer look at this, the things that were taken from the home seemed seemed more strategically taken than anything else. Denise's mom said that there were many electronics that were easily accessible throughout the house. I'm talking surround systems, little TVs that would have been very easy to steal, but those were not touched, which Denise's parents found odd, and police also thought that that was strange too. And along with that, Diane, Denise's mom, she said that out of all of the jewelry that she owned, only 3 of her rings were taken. And coincidentally enough, those 3 rings were the only rings that she had that were valuable. She found it odd that out of all of the jewelry that she owned, whoever robbed her and whoever took that jewelry would have taken those 3 rings specifically. It just seemed odd that that person would know that those were the only ones that had any value. Now, something else that police were also having trouble coming to terms with was the gun that killed Denise. The gun that killed Denise was the same type of gun that Nathan had at the home, and it was the same gun that police could now not find that was presumed stolen. Now, Nathan had an easy explanation for this when he was talking to police. He said the intruder must have found the gun, stole it, used it to kill Denise, and took it with them. Nathan said that the last time that he used that specific gun was a few weeks prior to Denise's murder when he was in Oklahoma shooting the gun. Now, something else that was bothering police was Denise's car. Denise's car was actually not at the home when police arrived to the scene. So her car was completely gone. Now, police were able to find her car fairly quickly. It was found at a nearby park called Robinson Park. And obviously for police, the initial thought is that whoever broke into the home drove the car to the park, used it as a getaway car, so to speak, drove it to the park, left it at the park, and then ran off on foot. But the issue was that Denise's car keys were actually found tangled in her hair when her body was discovered. So that had to have meant that there were an extra set of car keys somewhere, and those would have been used to move the car. But Nathan said that he was not aware of any extra set of car keys. All he was aware of was the one set of keys. But something else that was interesting about what Nathan told police was that even though he did say that he was not sure where the second set of car keys was, he did say that he too was at Robinson Park that day, which again, Robinson Park is the same park that Denise's car was found in. And this definitely left police in a state of pause for a moment. They were very curious as to why Nathan would be in Robinson Park at all that day. And it coincidentally was the same day that his wife had been murdered and that her car was in that park. Now, Nathan claimed that he was on his way home and he stopped off at Robinson Park to take a phone call, but that was it. He said that while he was there, he didn't see anything weird, wrong, off, strange. He also didn't notice Denise's car. He was just there to take a phone call. Now, as you can imagine, this piqued police's interest for a multitude of reasons because it just seemed a little too coincidental. So police asked Nathan who he was on the phone with, who the person was that caused him to veer off into Robinson Park to take this call, and what they learned actually piqued their interest even more. According to Nathan, he had taken a phone call from a 20-year-old Lithuanian exchange student named Ina Dobolaite. Ina was very close to the family. She had babysat the Leuthold children for years. Denise and Nathan actually first met Ina on their first missionary trip in 1998, so they had known her for quite some time. And when speaking to police about Ina, Nathan spoke Ina's praises. He said that over time, Ina had become very close with the family, so much so that Denise and Nathan had become her sponsors and helped her move to the U.S. The sponsorship started in the fall of 2010, and Ina moved to the United States to start going to college at Pensacola Christian College in Florida. Now, during school vacations, Ina would come back to Peoria to spend time with the Leutholds at Denise's parents' home. And then in December in 2011, Ina left the Pensacola college that she was at, and she moved to Peoria, Illinois, into the home that the Leutholds lived in. So Ina lived with Denise, Nathan, their 3 children, and Denise's parents while she was attending a community college in Peoria. Now, this was not the first time that Denise and Nathan had done something like this. As I mentioned previously, they had sponsored other people from Lithuania before, brought them to the United States, helped them pursue their education or different opportunities. So them doing this for Ina wasn't completely out of left field. However, Ina definitely got closer to the family than anyone else they had ever done this for. Now, 6 months prior to Denise's murder, Ina transferred schools again, this time going to a Christian college in Chicago. So at the time of Denise's murder, that is where she was. And when police learned this, they drove there to speak with her. Now, upon sitting down with Ina, police said that initially she was very cooperative. She answered all questions about her background and really what led her to the United States. However, once the questions got a little bit more specific and were a little bit more specific towards the Leutholds and more specifically towards Nathan, this is when Ina shut down. Ina refused to answer any more questions at this point. She would either just say that she was not going to answer, or she would just stare blankly at authorities with no emotion whatsoever. Now, in order to provoke some sort of emotion out of Ina or get some sort of information out of her, police actually showed Ina pictures of Denise during her autopsy and at the crime scene. Again, just trying to get something out of her. However, she had no emotion. Mind you, this is a woman that she had known for well over a decade at this point. She actually had known the Leutholds for about 15 years at this point. She had lived with them. She became very, very close to them. But upon seeing Denise murdered in her home, she had no emotion. Now, of course, before going into this meeting with Ina, detectives did prepare themselves on everything that they could learn about Ina and her relationship with Nathan. And what they learned is that it was very clear. There really was no question that the relationship between Nathan and Ina far surpassed just your typical sponsor-sponsee relationship. For example, as I had mentioned earlier, on the day of Valentine's Day, the day of Denise's murder, Nathan had gone to a day spa to pick up a gift certificate for a massage for Denise. But what police also learned is that Nathan was quite the regular at the specific day spa. He had been there many, many times before, but he had never been there with Denise. Employees at the spa said that Nathan had been to the spa many times with Ina. Employees said that they actually saw them so frequently that they figured that they were a couple. Nathan would pay for the massages and wax treatments that Ina would receive at this specific day spa. Now, along with that, Ina had disclosed to detectives that the reason that she left the school that she was at before attending the Christian college in Chicago was because she had to academically withdraw herself because of a medical condition with her hands that caused her to stop playing the piano. Ina was in school for music. She was a gifted pianist, but according to her, she said that she had to academically withdraw because of a medical condition with her hands. So police decided to fact check this. And what they learned is that Ina leaving college had nothing to do with a medical condition. But in fact, she was asked to leave because of an inappropriate relationship with her sponsor, which we know was Nathan. When looking through Ina's phone records, detectives were also able to notice that there was very consistent communication between Ina and Nathan. I'm talking multiple texts and multiple phone calls every single day. And when police asked Ina if she ever had any romantic or sexual relationship with Nathan, she flat out denied it, said it never happened, but everything else that police are looking at is saying otherwise. Now, at this point, police wanted to check Nathan's alibi. They wanted to fact check what he had done throughout the entire day leading up to calling 911 on February 14th. Again, Nathan claimed that he left the house on the morning of the 14th. He dropped the kids off at school, and then he went along his day with his errands. He said that he went to Chase Bank, Starbucks, and the day spa. However, the issue here was that there was a decent block of time that Nathan's whereabouts could not be accounted for. The time between 11:30 a.m. and 12:45 p.m., no one knew where Nathan was. Everything else was confirmed through either security cameras or surveillance footage of seeing Nathan walking into these stores or making transactions. But from 11:30 a.m. to 12:45 p.m., no one knew where he was. Nathan's last known errand before that 11:30 a.m. mark was when he went to Starbucks. And the last known errand at 12:45 p.m. is when he is seen at Starbucks for a second time. So again, 11:30 a.m., Nathan leaves the Starbucks. 12:45 p.m., he is seen walking back into that same Starbucks. But what happened in between that time period was unclear. And this was crucial because this was the time period that police believe the murder would have taken place. So at this point, detectives decided that they wanted to do a little experiment. They wanted to see how long it would have taken Nathan to leave the Starbucks that he was seen walking out of, drive in his car from that Starbucks to Robinson Park, walk from Robinson Park to Denise's family's home, and then drive back to that same Starbucks. They just wanted to see how long this route would have taken. And what they discovered is that if Nathan, or anyone for that matter, were to have taken that route, it would have taken Nathan 6 minutes and 55 seconds to do all of that. So this was not a long extended drive. This was not Starbucks was over here and the house was several miles over in the opposite direction and it would have taken a long time to get from point A to point B. We're talking from start to finish, 6 minutes and 55 seconds to get from the Starbucks to Robinson Park to Denise's home. And from Robinson Park to Denise's home, it was only 1 minute and 15 seconds. So not far whatsoever. And when police figured this out, when they're looking at this time frame, they are starting to believe that what's much more likely than a stranger breaking into the Leuthold home in the 20-minute time span that they would have had to do it. And when police realize this, when they look at this time frame, they began to realize that this theory of Nathan possibly being the one to have conducted this murder starts to seem a lot more likely than the alternative theory, which would be a stranger breaking into the Leuthold home in that perfect period of time while Denise was taking Janelle to daycare, and then Denise walks into the home and then gets shot as she walks inside. It just did not seem as plausible as potentially Nathan killing his own wife. And again, it wasn't just because the time frame seemed to match up. It was everything. It was that hour and 15 minutes where Nathan goes unaccounted for, which was the same hour and 15 minutes that police believe that Denise was murdered. There was foreign exchange student, Ina. There was the relationship that Ina had with Nathan, which in police's mind gives Nathan potential motive to want to harm his wife, to want to harm Denise. And then when you look at the time frame that it would have taken Nathan to drive from the Starbucks to Robinson Park to go to the house and back, it all started to make sense in police's mind. Police figured that it was much more plausible considering everything they were discovering about Nathan and the bizarre relationship that he was having with Ina. And if that wasn't suspicious enough, police got a warrant to search through Nathan's laptop. And when they did, they discovered that Nathan had set his settings to every Google search he made being instantly deleted. So anytime he would search something, everything would be instantly deleted, which really is neither here nor there when looking at a murder case, when thinking about the gravity of a murder case. You can't just base that off of someone wanting to delete their history, but it was more so what the deleted searches were, because experts were able to go in and recover Nathan's deleted searches. And what they discovered was that in the 7 months leading up to Denise's murder, Nathan has searched things things like how to silence a .40 caliber handgun, which, mind you, was the same gun that was used to kill Denise and the gun that was stolen out of the home. He also searched how to suppress a shotgun. He searched how to overdose on insulin, how to drown someone in a bathtub, how to electrocute someone in the bathtub. These are all searches that Nathan is making on his laptop in the 7 months leading up to his wife's death. Now, when Nathan was confronted about these searches, Nathan again said that it was perfectly explainable. Nathan said that he had worked in the church with people who had suicidal ideations, suicidal thoughts, and when he heard their stories, he wanted to learn more information about the different methods that they were discussing in these conversations. Police did not buy this. They didn't buy it one bit. So with all of this information that they are now collecting, 3 weeks after Denise's murder, Nathan Leuthold was arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of his wife, Denise. Now, many people in Nathan's life, his friends, people that were close to him through the church, they were absolutely stunned by this arrest. Nathan was a missionary. He portrayed himself to be a stand-up guy, someone who had devoted his life to being a good person. And while some thought that this had to be a mistake, others began to question if Nathan was leading a double life this entire time. Regardless of what anyone thought, though, Nathan pled not guilty, saying that he would never have done anything to ever harm his wife, Denise, or his family. But regardless, Nathan went to trial. Nathan's trial began on July 14th of 2014, and the prosecution painted a picture of Nathan being a cold-blooded, calculated killer. Prosecution theorized that on February 14th, 2013, that Nathan put his long-awaited plan into action. They believe that once Nathan had completed his morning responsibilities, taking the kids to school, running to Chase Bank, and then to Starbucks, they then believed that he waited for Denise to leave and drop Janelle off at daycare. They believe that Nathan parked his car at Robinson Park around 12:15 p.m. and then walked to the home, which again would have only been a several-minute walk. It would not have taken him long at all. They then believe that while Denise was gone, Nathan staged a robbery, grabbed his gun, and waited for Denise to come home. Once Denise walked into the door, prosecution believes that Nathan shot Denise in the back of the head before taking Denise's car, driving it to Robinson Park, leaving it there, taking the extra keys that they believe he knew existed prior to all of this, throwing them in the trash can at the park because that is where they were later discovered, and then getting into his own car and then driving back to the Starbucks at 12:45. So they believe that once Denise got home from dropping Janelle off at daycare, Nathan was already there waiting for her. They believe he shot her immediately when she walked into the home and then took her car, drove it to Robinson Park, and then traded cars. They believe that his car was already waiting there for him because that is where he drove it to, and then took his car and drove it to the Starbucks, leaving Denise's car at Robinson Park. The prosecution believes that Nathan told detectives that he was at Robinson Park that day because he was worried that someone would have noticed his car there and needed an explanation as to why he was there, basically giving himself an excuse and a reasoning if anyone were to plant his car at Robinson Park that day. At 12:45, Nathan is then seen walking back into the Starbucks that he had left at 11:30, and prosecution believes that Nathan walked into the bathroom at the Starbucks and washed his hands of any gunshot residue that could have been left behind. Now, first responders did express their suspicion over Nathan's demeanor on the day of Denise's murder. According to them, they claimed that when they arrived at the scene, there was absolutely no emotion coming from Nathan whatsoever. And when hearing that Denise died, Nathan seemed very cold. He seemed shut off, and he did not seem fazed one bit. They actually played the initial questioning footage from Nathan, where detectives and Nathan are talking about Denise and talking about what had happened. And when Nathan hears that Denise is dead, he has zero emotion. He actually says, "No, I knew that." He actually had a little bit of an attitude, if anything. When the detective told him and reminded him that Denise was dead, he said something to the effect of, "I was told that in the elevator." He had no emotion when speaking about it. Now, the one thing that prosecution did not have, however, in this trial was a murder weapon. The gun that was used to murder Denise was never recovered, and while that definitely was a hiccup for the prosecution, they were confident that the evidence that they did have against Nathan was strong enough to uphold itself. The prosecution also had a neighbor of Denise's parents take the stand, and she claimed that on the day of the murder, she saw a man in a black hoodie walking alongside the road toward Denise's family's home. The neighbor actually looked at a photo lineup that was provided by police and was able to identify who she claimed to be the man walking along the street, and that person that she identified was Nathan Leuthold. And again, this neighbor was a neighbor of Denise's parents, so she didn't really know Nathan. She knew Denise's family, she knew Denise's parents, but she was not very familiar with Nathan himself. Now, this neighbor said that she was extremely careful when looking through the photos, and she knew immediately that Nathan was the one that she saw walking along the street. Now, along with that, police did find a black hoodie at the crime scene, which was Nathan and Denise's bedroom. They found the black hoodie on the floor. It was one that Nathan owned, so it was his, and that hoodie had gunshot residue on it. Now, just like everything, Nathan said that he had a perfect explanation for this. He claimed that he wore the hoodie in Oklahoma 2 weeks prior to shooting his gun that was now missing. But prosecution states that there would no longer be gunshot residue on the hoodie if it was really from 2 weeks prior. They claimed that by that point, the gunshot residue would not exist, meaning that it had to have been from that day if it really was true that Nathan had not shot the gun for that 2-week period. Now, an inmate of Nathan's named David Smith also took the stand and testified against Nathan, claiming that Nathan had confessed to him about the murder. Now, it should also be stated, just for the record, that the defense was very vocal about the fact that this specific inmate, David Smith, was almost known as the quote-unquote inmate snitch, is what he was called, because he talked a lot about the people that he was incarcerated with, and Nathan was one of them. According to David, he claimed that Nathan was very vocal about the fact that he did, in fact, kill his wife. And what really made this very believable, however, was the fact that David explained that Nathan told him, so this is coming from Nathan, Nathan said that he was worried about the day of the murder because he felt like there was a woman who saw him walking towards the house. And what we know is that there was. It was Denise's family's neighbor. And that information was never made public, so it did feel like the only way that David would know that information is if it came from Nathan himself. David went on to say that Nathan explained that the motive for Denise's murder was because he felt like Denise was overbearing and ultimately because he had met someone else, and that someone else was the Lithuanian student Ina. And not only that, Nathan went on to tell David that he strategically chose to murder Denise on Valentine's Day as a present to his mistress, Ina. Again, that is coming from David. David said that Nathan told him that Denise's murder was essentially a Valentine's Day gift to his mistress. So with that all being said, it was now Ina's turn to take the stand. Ina was given immunity in exchange for her testimony, but her testimony, truthfully, it was pretty useless because Ina did not want to answer any questions. But regardless, prosecution did present text messages between Nathan and Ina that took place on February 14th, 2013. So again, the day of the murder. Nathan texted Ina at 8:37 a.m. saying, quote, "I know there is a lot to do today, and I pray that there is enough time to do everything. Have good lectures and meetings. Take care of yourself." End quote. Later in the afternoon, Nathan texts Ina a second time saying that there had been an intruder in the home, to which Ina responded with, "Interesting," smiley face. Now, the interesting smiley face has definitely been up for interpretation a lot. The prosecution really emphasized this because they felt like the interesting smiley face alluded to the fact that Ina was very well aware of this plan. It made them believe that Ina was possibly in on this plan or potentially knew more than she was letting on. Now, another very crucial piece of evidence in this case was a note that the prosecution discovered in Denise's nightstand. Now, this note was a letter that was written from Denise to David. And in this letter, Denise writes, quote, "I have tried to please you for over 17 years and have never succeeded. I know you want me dead. I'm not stupid. You want to humiliate me by running around with a 20-year-old? Fine. How long are you going to do this to me? Oh, until I break? Because that's what you said. Well, happy waiting," end quote. This note, this letter that Denise had written Nathan, this was incredibly powerful during this trial because this was Denise in her own words explaining how she felt in her marriage, this perfect marriage that Nathan had been trying to paint. The picture of the perfect marriage that Nathan had been trying to sell everyone now comes crumbling down when people are reading this note, because not only does it show a turbulent marriage, it also talks about Ina. Now, while it doesn't call out Ina by name specifically, one can assume that the 20-year-old that she is talking about in this note is in fact Ina. Ina was 20 years old at the time that this happened, and so it's easy to assume that that would be who she is referring to. But with all of this, Nathan's defense team argued that this note showed nothing and that Nathan had done nothing wrong in this case whatsoever. The defense said that Nathan was an easy target in this case, but that does not mean that he was the right target, and it certainly does not make him a killer. Nathan also claimed that he did not have an affair, and the defense really argued against the timeline of this all. Like I said, that timeline window, that 15-minute window that it would have taken Nathan to go home, ransack the house, kill Denise, switch cars, then go back to the Starbucks where he's seen at 12:45. Now, again, it is possible because of the transportation of all of this, because it only does take about 6 minutes and 55 seconds. It is very possible that this happened that way. But the defense argued against it. They said that it would have been nearly impossible for Nathan to do all of that in such a short period of time. Now, Nathan did not take the stand during his trial, and he said the reason for this was because he saw the state continue to take things out of context and twist things, and he said they were speaking blatant untruths and lies, so he didn't want to give them any more fuel to the fire, and he chose not to testify. Now, after both the prosecution and the defense had rested their case, and in the 90 minutes it took the jury to reach a verdict, the jury came back and ruled that Nathan was guilty of the first-degree murder of his wife, Denise, and he was sentenced to 80 years in prison. Now, to this day, Nathan denies having any involvement in this case. He denies ever hurting Denise. He denies ever having an affair. He denies every single thing that he has been accused of in this case. He says that none of it is true, but when you look at the evidence, it is very hard to believe that. So let me know what you guys think about this case. And with that being said, you guys, that's going to be all for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Killer Instinct. Again, if you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah and I'm your host of Killer Instinct. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We post weekly here every single Wednesday on the podcast. You're not going to want to miss it. We also upload the video version onto YouTube on Wednesdays as well. And if you want more exclusive Killer Instinct content, you can always find that over on our Patreon, which is always linked in the description box below. I will be back next week with a brand new one for you guys, and until then, stay safe. Bye, guys.